Kindness without boundaries becomes a map. It tells strangers where the exits are, where the soft spots are, how far you will stretch before you snap. Machiavelli noticed this pattern 2 centuries before psychology had a name for it. A ruler who mistakes mercy for strength invites the knife. He wrote that men will exploit the generous if generosity is unguarded. That observation is a cold machine that keeps running inside modern relationships. Imagine a kitchen at midnight. The light over the table is a single bulb. A phone screen glows. You type, "Are you okay?" Pause. Backspace. A different draft. No problem. Take your time. Pause. Delete. You feel the pressure behind the typing, the small, corrosive voice that says, if you ask for more, you will be a burden. You send the softened text. 10 minutes later, the reply, a clipped thanks. Later, a request arrives that erases your plans. The pattern is imperceptible at first. You accommodate, you excuse, you explain. Then you are surprised to discover your calendar flattened around someone else's priorities. Why does this happen? Because kindness without boundaries is legible. It is information. It broadcasts a resource. I am available. I will tolerate inconvenience. I will accept blame to keep peace. Power, in every age, reads that signal like a map. The early modern strategist who advised princes recognized that cruelty can be strategic and that mercy can be weaponized against its giver. The lesson was not heroic, it was observational. People respond to incentives. If your incentives are to avoid discomfort at all costs, others will arrange the landscape so your discomfort is constant and theirs is rare. Consider Cesare Borgia, the man Machiavelli admired and feared. He solved the problem of unruly territories not by endless negotiation, but by a controlled display of force and by rewarding those who served him. He tolerated nothing that compromised his aims. The consequence, a quick consolidation of power. Now translate that to a different set of halls, the office, the family chat, the dinner table. The person who refuses to enforce a deadline is treated by co-workers as the default fixer. The partner who continually caves in to small demands is the one who becomes the caretaker of all problems. The child who is never corrected learns to press boundaries. Power accumulates where resistance is weak. This is not about malice alone, it is about leverage. Social psychologists have catalogued the mechanics. The reciprocity norm makes us feel obliged to return favors. The foot-in-the-door technique gets assent to large requests by starting with small ones. Conformity experiments show how often we will bend to group expectation. Each of these is a tiny tool in the hands of someone who notices patterns. Combine them with a target who prizes harmony over conflict, and you have a blueprint for covert control. Picture a common scene. A friend arrives late, apologizes, then asks you to help move next weekend. You agree even though you had hoped to rest. On moving day, they text, delayed, and then ask if you can pick up the boxes alone. You do. Weeks later, they complain about something trivial and you apologize and fix it. The relationship is not dramatic. It accumulates like rust. Manipulation rarely looks like a crime. It looks like a series of concessions wrapped in benevolent language. The person who wields it will say, with slow sincerity, "I thought you'd do it," or "I didn't want to bother you." Those phrases are not apologies, they are beacons. They pinpoint where guilt will take and where it will give. Guilt is currency. It is the internal fine system we learned in childhood to discourage transgression. Parents calibrate our guilt with love. Don't do that, you'll hurt someone, or you should feel ashamed. That calibration backfires for people who become adults who equate disagreement with abandonment. They keep the peace because peace is proof they are loved. Manipulators exploit that ledger. They make deposits of mild neediness and then write checks the size of your self-respect. There are academic moments that make this cruelly obvious. Stanley Milgram showed that ordinary people will deliver pain when an authority says it's necessary. That experiment is a blunt instrument, authority plus instruction. But the subtler experiments about compliance show something more human. We surrender autonomy when our social currency is at stake. The need to belong is stronger than the need to be right. That is how a gaslighter can get you to apologize for something you did not do. That is how a boss can load you with extra tasks because you have been coded to take blame rather than demand recompense. Control often hides under the language of care. I worry about you becomes surveillance. Let me help becomes dependency creation. The manipulator learns to alternate reward and withdrawal, to punish with silence and reward with affection. It is a curriculum in small pressures, the late texts, the passive complaints, the withheld gratitude. Over time, the target's internal boundaries erode. They stop asking. They stop asserting. They begin to anticipate the other person's needs to prevent conflict, which only signals their pliability more loudly. What is striking is how private this process feels. No one else notices the subtleness. Your friends see only the outcomes. You're tired, you're stretched thin, you make excuses. But the mechanistic rhythm is internal. You reduce your needs before they can be rejected. You swallow a complaint. You rationalize. You become reliable in the service of someone else's instability. This is not weakness in the naive moral sense. It is a conditioned response crafted by social rewards and self-protective anxiety. There is an interior decision that matters more than any strategy manual. Philosophy that speaks of power very often turns on this point. You cannot change how other people behave by simply being kind. Machiavelli advised appearance and calculation. The Stoics advised an inner citadel. That doesn't mean becoming cold. It means understanding your behavior as data. Your concessions are signals you can read back. You can track the pattern: who asks most, who apologizes least, who thanks you with strings attached. Once you begin to see your own thresholds, you can adjust them. Imagine annotating your life like a ledger. Small favors logged, small resentments noted. A week later, a month later, you see a pattern. You will not be virtuous by accident. You will be strategic by design. Boundaries are a form of information hygiene. They change the feedback loop. They tell others, non-violently and clearly, what you will accept and what you will not. In the absence of that clarity, someone will invent your limits for you. So ask yourself, when was the last time you said no, and it stayed no? When was the last time you let silence be silence, instead of smoothing it with explanation? Manipulators prefer answers, even if the answer is compliance. They prefer to keep you explaining because explanations are opportunities to apologize. Your discomfort has value, your apologies are transactions. The final truth is simple and unromantic. Kindness is not a shield, it is a direction sign. If you do not govern the map, others will. The dangerous lesson Machiavelli offered is that compassion without craft is powerless. The modern corollary, less noble and more intimate, is this: if you trade your limits for peace, you will not create harmony. You will create a market where your peace is the most traded commodity. Who will buy it next? Who will draw up the route through your life next month, next year? The answer depends on whether you keep your map tucked away or hand it out with a smile.